Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CBL X's and O's podcast for season 2023. Got Sammy Gazzo from Mildura Heat joining me again today, and we're sitting down to review what was round 8, our last regular season round in the Northwest Conference. And some results went the way we thought they would. Some probably went a little bit the other, but they were going to be quite tight games, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly right. I think our feelings, or what we thought, sort of went to fruition, if that's the right word. Came to fruition. Sorry. So yeah, it was tight, and there was a couple of games that could have gone either way. But yeah, I think who we thought was going to win through did win through, and there's probably a couple of viewers wanting to know what's happening with all this ladder mumbo jumbo. You know, in the women's, Melton are on top. If you have a look on the website, but then we know that Kyneton have finished on top there through head-to-head. So you're going to have to do some explaining here, Matty. People want to know who's playing who and where's going where. But anyways, we'll go through the results first.
Certainly. Let's hit the results. And the men, Saturday night, Bacchus Marsh travelled to Echuca and got the job done pretty comfortably there.
Yeah, as you probably think, Bacchus Marsh probably feel a little bit unlucky, only a couple of games outside. And you know, probably some of those losses that they were close. It hurts you at the end of the season when it is such a tight competition. But we're shouting out, we're going to try and say Deng Kual, I think his name, just with 41 points just for the last game of the season. 8 3-pointers, by the way, if you don't mind. But yeah, Bacchus Marsh getting it done. And Echuca had some good form towards the end of the year, so hopefully it's something they can bring into next year's CBL season.
And Castlemaine had the road trip up to take on Mildura and Swan Hill this weekend, and they came in with a 7-1 record, and they finished the weekend 7-3. Tough road trip coming up to Mildura and then backing up to Swan Hill on the Sunday. They were probably a little bit undermanned by the sounds of the trip, the players that made the road trip.
Yeah, I think the boys, they had a bit of an idea at Castlemaine that really was 1 or 2, even if they did drop both games. So, yeah, a bit undermanned. A couple of guys were away and sick. But shout out to the Castlemaine lads. We had a bit of a chat after the game and, you know, some good blokes there. So, yeah, it was a tough game, entertaining game. It was, you know, up and down sort of for both teams. They started off quite well and we caught up, and then we were up by a little bit. Then they came back towards the end. So, did feel like a finals game too. So, shout out to the crowd. They were great and Castlemaine were great. So, yeah, more than anything else, it was just who was going to finish top, I think, out of it. But, kudos to our boys for getting the job done. And Castlemaine will be a force to reckon with for this final series. So, yeah, stay tuned.
And then Sunday, Melton took on Macedon, which this game we discussed was going to be the winner. Yeah. Got a spot in the top 4 and the loser missed out. And in this case, Melton ran over the top of Macedon. Melton were at home, so they did have a bit of an advantage there. But Milan Savic is hitting a little bit of form as he sort of had at the start of the season, shooting 21 points.
Yeah, just that was sort of the thinking. Melton's firepower was just going to be a little bit too much for Macedon. They're probably, you know, they've got some great offensive players in there, but they are defensive-minded, I feel anyways. And I just thought Melton were just going to be on the front foot attacking from the get-go, knowing that, you know, they did have to win this one game. So, you know, kudos to Melton. And for Macedon, you know, not for anything, but a great season. I'd like to think anyways. I think I probably wouldn't have picked them to have been so close just from my understanding. So, you know, kudos to them. Nick Grantham and Joshua O'Connell had a great year for them. So, again, leading with the scoring. But, yeah, Milan Savic, you know, he's been quite consistent all year and, you know, he'll be one to watch come final series.
And Swan Hill took on Castlemaine on their way back home, and they were able to get their 4th win for the season with a 13-point victory over the second-place Cannons.
Yeah, again, undermanned there. Castlemaine, they only had 7 for the weekend. So, you know, a couple of tough games, especially with the road travel. So, sort of did think Swan Hill would probably get them, just knowing that, you know, after the Saturday night, once they gave it a good crack, it really wasn't going to mean too much. They'll get some players back and Castlemaine will be fine. And good on Swan Hill. Last year, I'm pretty sure they would have been 2-7 or something of that regard. I think we only played 7, 8, 9 games we played last year. So to finish with 4 wins, you know, kudos to them. a lot of those on those Sundays. They've done some great jobs. So hopefully some real positives for them going into next year.
And Bendigo welcomed Kyneton into Red Energy Arena and made light work of the Tigers, unfortunately winning by, that's about 60, 73 points.
Yeah, he unfortunately sort of thought, no, maybe not 70 points, but he did think that was going to be the case. Hearing that Mangan tore his Achilles, which was a huge loss. Achilles, ouch, real ouch. So hopefully he's on the road to recovery. But yeah, for Bendigo, it was probably just about getting into some form before finals. And yeah, they got the job done.
And that's our season done in the men. We can have a look at the ladder now at the end of the season. We got Mildura finishing on top with a 9-1 record. Closely followed was Castlemaine, Bendigo, and Melton, all on 7-3 record.
Explain it. Come on, mate. Just explain it. Please explain it.
So to work out who finished second, third, and fourth, we go to a head-to-head between them three teams. So obviously Castlemaine beat Bendigo and Melton. So they have a 2-0 record in that little ladder. And then Bendigo beat Melton, which would finish them 1-1 in a head-to-head split. And Melton couldn't get a win against either of them two teams, so they would be 0-2. So we put it head-to-head. Castlemaine finishes second, Bendigo finishes third, Melton finishes fourth. That's our top four. We then drop to fifth, where we had Macedon 5-5 and Bacchus Marsh 5-5. Macedon got the head-to-head by beating Bacchus Marsh in the game. So they land on top of them, and then Swan Hill, Maryborough were the next two, both on 4 and 6. Again, had to be split head-to-head, which is saw Swan Hill win that game a couple of weeks ago. And then we've got Echuca 2-8, and then Kyneton rounding out the ladder 0-10. So really exciting top four. Some really interesting games in the semi-finals next week.
Yeah, definitely. I think both teams in both games do know the other teams quite well. So that's why we're on for finals. I think it'll be some fun, definitely.
And let's have a look into the women's games. And Melton had 2 games this weekend and needed to tick 2 boxes, win both, and they were really locking themselves into finals. And they ticked the box on Saturday night with their first win, easily accounting for Swan Hill. I think that's about 80 points. That's a nightmare of a night for Swan Hill.
Yeah, not the way you want to end the season for Swan Hill, even though they did play the 2 games. But yeah, it looks like Melton meant business, didn't they? Making sure that they got that one on Saturday night was really going to set them up for the rest of the weekend. And kudos to them. 80. Yeah, what's that? 75, 70. Oh no, 80 points. Yeah, ouch. Yeah.
And Mildura welcomed Bacchus Marsh into the hothouse and were able to tick their box. They needed to win their game to lock in finals, which they did easily. Well, I wouldn't say easily. They beat Bacchus Marsh by, 14 points roughly. So it wasn't an easy win, but they ticked the box and got the win which they needed.
Yeah, the women did a great job sort of in that first half setting up the game, and they were up by a bit. But kudos to Bacchus Marsh. They kept fighting to the end. They, got it around that 10-point mark with a couple of minutes to go. So it did get a bit close there, and they kept going. But, yeah, obviously our girls will be happy they won, and just make sure they secure a spot in the finals.
And then Sunday, Melton took on Macedon Rangers at home, and they had to tick their second box, which they did, easily accounting for the Rockies. And in the end, ticking 2 boxes got Melton to second position.
Yeah, exactly, which is, again, kudos to them. I think they would have felt a bit of relief after Saturday night's game, just making sure they ticked that box and got that, and did what they had to do against Macedon. So Ruby Murphy there with 23 points was their highest scorer, but I guess for Macedon, yeah, probably not quite how they wanted to finish out the year, not being able to pick up a win. So Adrian Cameron seems to have tried her best throughout the series, throughout the season there, but top scoring again with 18. So, yeah, kudos to her. But, yeah, Macedon probably going to have to look at some things for the next CBL season. Definitely.
And Swan Hill welcomed Bacchus Marsh into their home court on their way home. And unfortunately, they couldn't finish the season with a win. going down by 40 points to the Lions. But Jelena Savic obviously had a bit of a stellar season, and she continued that form in the last game, shooting 19 points.
Yeah, she's a great player. I got to see her Saturday night and moves really well and a really good ball handler. So kudos to her for a great CBL season. Hopefully that sets her up for whatever she's doing next year in regards to her basketball. But yeah, Bacchus Marsh again. They probably needed that win on the Saturday night to sort of get that finals, but good on them for finishing the season off the right way, making sure they win. Again, for Swan Hill, another loss, probably not the way you want to finish out the season, but tough opponent.
And our last regular season game was between Bendigo and Kyneton, and this was going to be a cracker. These were two teams that were going to feature in finals, and it was going to potentially, lay out the ladder for Bendigo of where they finished, and they were able to get the win and fall into third place.
Yeah, I think for Kyneton, they had first place sort of notched up before the season, before the weekend started. So I don't think there would have been any complacency, but probably not that real urgency that they needed to, knowing they needed to make sure that they were ready for the next week. But Bendigo's firepower is going to be something to watch, I think, this final series, seeing how it goes. Because when it is finals, it does sort of tighten up and lock up a little bit. So it'll just be interesting. A team like Kyneton going to be very dangerous in the final series because they seem to be very defensive orientated. So be interesting to see how they go. But Bendigo finishing off the right way and put them in a good position moving into finals.
And we'll take a look at the ladder as we finish the season, and Kyneton finish on top with an 8-2 record, followed with Melton. Both finished on 8-2. So Kyneton obviously had the head-to-head against Melton, hence why they finished on top. Third and fourth was split between Bendigo and Mildura, both with 7-3 records. And again, Bendigo had the head-to-head, winning the 2 games against Melton during the season, getting them the higher position. Maryborough obviously finished the season 5-5. They finished their season in round 7. Bacchus Marsh finished the next position down with a 4-5 record. Swan Hill, second from the bottom, finished with a 1-9 record, and Macedon, unfortunately, last team on the ladder this season with a 0-10 record. But again, it's set up a really tight tussle for the top 4 in the finals next week.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So we're playing at Kyneton and Melton get to preview how they're going to be looking, not the team as such, but Cobblebank Stadium gets a little bit of a run before they host the final series the week after. So, in both conferences, it looks like it's going to be fun.
That's it. So going to be some great basketball coming up in the semi-finals, but that's our last round regular season review, round 8 review done and dusted for the North West Conference, and we'll jump on a call later this week, Sammy, and preview what will be the big semi-finals in the North West Conference for our viewers, our listeners, and our fans out there. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you later in the week.